Cool. So let's start. Good evening or good morning, maybe good night, whatever you are meeting us today. We would like to start our conference, and with very valued keynote speakers, we would like to talk about opportunities and risks of digital revolution for transport infrastructure, managers like us, NRAs, National Road Authorities, DOTs from the state, and so on, road users, and also vehicle manufacturers. So at the beginning, I would like to invite Rovital Levy, head of R&D department of Netivei Israel, to open this conference. Rovital, your microphone, please, your scene.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the webinar. My name is Rovital Levy. I'm the head of the R&D department here in Netivei Israel. I'm happy to see so many representatives from so many countries and organizations coming to share experience and knowledge. I would like to greet the representative from CEDAR, Association of Directors of European Road Authorities, from PIARC, the World Association of Roads, and FAIRL, Forum of European Highway Research Laboratories, which also contributed to the promotion of this event. I would like to thank the keynote speakers, our partners, Christoph Rambout from the Flemish Agency for Road and Traffic, John Corbin from FHWA, Susan Richmond-Johnson from Trafficland, Professor Tal Oron-Gilad and Dr. Elit Oppenheim from Ben-Gurion University, Steven Salzberg from Smart City, and Rona Valinsky from the Israel Living Lab, who is replacing Dr. Smadar Itzkovich, who could not participate due to the passing of her father, and we send her our condolences. Netivei Israel is a government-owned company that was established 100 years ago and is the largest transportation infrastructure company in Israel. Netivei Israel is a multi-role company in charge of the design, construction, and maintenance of almost all interurban roads in Israel, and in charge of traffic management and safety of road users. My department, the R&D department, leads a roadmap for utilization of advanced technologies and methods in those core topics. Traditionally, transportation infrastructure boiled down to asphalt, concrete, and steel, meaning roads, bridges, railways. The challenges were of a civil engineering nature, how to build the infrastructure, what materials to use, and so on. And in recent years, we witnessed a significant development momentum. The world of transportation infrastructure is going through a significant change. It is clear that in order to meet the requirements of an efficient and safe traffic flow, of managing and reducing congestion, enabling large-scale entry of electric vehicles and connected and autonomous vehicles, the infrastructure should include new disciplines, such as advanced technological sensors, 5G communications and IoT connectivity, electric vehicles charging, real-time adaptive traffic control systems, data science, computer science. All those and more are new forms of infrastructure. The amount of data available is enormous, and many sensors are available as part of the infrastructure itself, installed in vehicles, in our personal belongings. All these sensors collect data non-stop, and communication networks enable this data to be shared even in real time. This data creates new opportunities to work smarter, more efficiently, more effectively, and on the other hand, presents challenges and requires a whole new set of tools and methods regarding how to gather the data, how to analyze it, and create practical knowledge. As a road authority, we see opportunities in various core topics. One core topic is traffic planning and traffic management, on which we will focus in this event. Another core topic is infrastructure maintenance, planning, and executing. Crowdsourced big data methods and machine learning opens new opportunities for ongoing continuous assessment of road conditions, such as potholes, road surface marking, etc., with high efficiency in coverage of area. That opens new opportunities for building an efficient and effective annual maintenance work plan and optimize maintenance budget allocation. Another topic that I would like to mention is infrastructure design and construction planning and management. Digitization and BIM methodology opens the whole world of possibilities regarding project planning and project management. The digital revolution makes a huge difference in various core topics. In this event, presentations will focus on opportunities and risks of digital revolution regarding traffic management in urban areas, peri-urban areas, and interurban areas. Each speaker will shed light on a different aspect of this subject, from the infrastructure point of view, the vehicles point of view, and the road users point of view. I would like to thank Edward Yasulewski and May Jakobson for the setting of this meeting and planning the diverse agenda. And of course, again, I want to thank all the speakers and to wish us all a productive meeting and a discussion beneficial to all sides. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravitali. I would like to invite Rona Walinsky from the Israel Living Lab to share her insights with us. Please, Rona.
Thank you.
You should start, Rona, the first slide.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So hi, thank you, Vital, for inviting us. So good afternoon. My name is Rona, and I'm the program management lead here at Israel Living Lab. I'm in charge of our joint projects and challenges, and I'm here today with Naama, a project manager here at in our team. So today I would like to tell you about Israel Living Lab and about our activities. We're an NGO which is recognized by the Israel Innovation Authority and was founded in 2020 by Dr. Smadar Itzkovich. Living Lab is actually a concept that was inspired by one of the most prestigious programs at MIT that was led by Smadar as well. Our mission over at Israel Living Lab is to accelerate innovation through collaboration of the major players in the public and the private sectors. And we are focusing in three parts of our organization. The first one is a collaboration membership. Our members are the leaders in both private and the public sectors. The second is our data platform, where companies can share and use their data on this unique platform. And how do we do it? By joint challenges. Our consortium members can take part in multiple tech challenges. And this is actually part of our core belief. Through data sharing and open innovation, we can achieve so much more and have a greater impact as a group. So here,
I would like, sorry, after that, I want to add some regarding the need.
Yes, sure.
Okay, so Rona introduced the Israel Smart Mobility Living Lab. I would like to add some words about the need that was in the basis of this project that Rona is going to talk about. So from our point of view as a road authority regarding traffic, today's capabilities are mainly monitoring and responding to rising events, mostly based on a notification coming from road users. Although there are cameras at many junctions, there is almost no video analytics, and traffic light plans are based on specific counts conducted from time to time and provide a limited responsibility to real-time traffic situations. Netivei Israel's strategic roadmap defines the goal of moving from traffic monitoring to traffic management. And in order to reach this goal, we defined three core categories of capabilities needed. The first one is data. Moving from a target traffic monitoring to traffic management requires gathering data based on multiple and various data sources. The second one is insights. Based on the data, moving from monitoring to management requires providing the road manager with insights regarding the traffic, both for real-time needs and for a more effective planning. And the third leg is actions. Based on the insights, we must provide the road manager with operative tools to deal with traffic flow anomalies detected or even predicted. As a step in the strategic road plan, we decided to conduct a pilot in one of our main highways where we implement in test some different CONOPS, concepts of operation, and various capabilities and building blocks. All that with the aim of clarifying the requirements regarding interurban traffic management in various scenarios. The main objective was to demonstrate and test the ability to provide the road manager with a comprehensive integrated real-time traffic situation awareness, which enables proactive traffic management, meaning quick identification of bottlenecks and evolving traffic anomalies while they are still manageable, and of course, address them. The second main objective was to build integrated dashboards based on the data, enabling effective traffic planning and maintenance planning processes. Now, regarding data, those capabilities, both real-time capabilities and planning capabilities, should be based on data collected continuously and from various data sources, both sensors from various technologies like CC2V, thermal cameras, Bluetooth sensors, RF sensors, and sensors installed in vehicles, and as well as data collected from various databases, such as public databases as our transportation public authority database, private application databases. So in this pilot, we want to test various data sources in order to define the efficient and effective operating point regarding sensors and data sources mixture. Regarding insights, those capabilities, again, both real-time and planning, should be based on data fusion and data analysis algorithms, enabling efficient and effective usage of data and supporting improved decision-making in various scenarios. Now, taking into account the complexity of such a pilot and the multidisciplinary capabilities required, it was clear that the solution must be based on a collaboration of various technological companies. And that is why we decided to start this pilot with the Israel Smart Mobility Living Lab, which offers us this kind of collaboration needed for such a complex project. Thank you.
Thank you, Revital. So I will continue. Okay, so here you can see all our members divided into different sectors. The private companies such as Klal Insurance, Cellcom, tech companies. Israel known as the startup nation, and we have some of the most innovative companies such as Moveit, Hopon, Tomorrow.io, Rico, Cognata, and many more. We have a public sector, of course, Netivei Israel, which we are in a big collaboration with, cities, the Survey of Israel, and of course, the academia. We are leading with them with the best researchers and the universities, such as MIT, Technion, and Harvard. So continue to Revital saying about our collaboration in the project Pilot Road 2. I would like to show you a short video that will best demonstrate.
new opportunities for the planning, construction, and operation of transport infrastructures. At Netivei Israel, we're revolutionizing the way we travel, creating an interconnected digital highway. We're collaborating with Israel Living Lab Consortium, who provides a digital platform that brings together data and insights from 9 innovative companies to make smarter, real-time decisions. This collaboration accelerates creative solutions for the public good, easing congestion, reducing pollution, and making travel safer. We're starting our journey with a pilot of Road 2. Waycare's powerful management software serves as a real-time aggregate data system, providing a dashboard with all the data collected from the sensors. Using anonymous, aggregated data captured from Nexar-powered dash cams, we will be able to be hands-on with the infrastructure condition and see the road from the driver's perspective. Whether it's a bus or a train, MoveIt provides real-time public transport locations, estimated arrival time, statistic reports, and historical data points. AD Night passively and anonymously detects Bluetooth and Wi-Fi devices, creating an estimated number of people waiting for the bus or train in real time. To complete the public transport picture, Hop-On helps us get a better understanding of public transport users' behavior. With Safer Place, you can automatically detect high-risk moving traffic violations, including unauthorized vehicles in public transportation lanes. Also, Safer Place provides data on trucks on the roads. Tomorrow is the world-leading weather forecast platform, allowing us to prepare for weather-related challenges with the most relevant information and insights. Blue-white robotics are the eye in the sky. In case of an accident or event, a drone will be sent in no time to the location and will provide a real-time video picture from above. All these technologies are bringing a new generation of safety, efficiency, and sustainability to mobility. Join us for a better journey on the highway of tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Just second. Okay, so after you've seen this short video, I would like to tell you that we're talking about a very unique project. This project is spread across 22 kilometers of one of the most busiest highways here in Israel. The main goal is monitoring traffic events and better understand traffic patterns by using data from multiple sources. The platform includes data about public transportation, traffic patterns, weather, road infrastructures, and maintenance.
Rona, sorry, please switch to other window because I do not see your presentation so far.
Okay. Do you see it now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So what does it look like? As I discussed in the previous slide, we fuse multiple data sources for better traffic insights. The data is streamed to 2 platforms, real-time dashboard to be operated by the traffic controllers, and the data analysis tool to be analyzed by traffic planners and decision makers. So just for the end, you might think to yourself, why are these companies want to share their data? What we found that companies understand the meaning of being part of something bigger. Through collaboration, our consortium serves a bridge which can bring together private and public sector in order to deal with major challenges. Here at Israel and of course worldwide. So thank you for your time and for listening to me, and you're more than welcome to contact us here in LinkedIn and of course in our website. Thank you.
Rona, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Maybe in one sentence, what is the main risk, do you think, for digitalization brings to us, to Netivei Israel, and already in your project, what you actually showed so far?
I think that we have companies, collaboration with companies that might be competitors, but actually they don't, because each one has their own place and they can present their data in different technology. So we serve that in a way that everybody has their own place.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your reply. So right now, I would like to invite John Cobrin from FHWA, from Federal Highway Administration. John is the manager for Transportation Automation Program. So John, your screen, please, in my microphone.
Wonderful. Can you hear me okay, Edward?
Yeah, I hear
Excellent.
you perfect.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I am honored to be included, and actually more than a bit intimidated to be included in such an august panel. I look forward. I've already learned a bit and look forward to learning more. As was mentioned, work currently for the Federal Highway Administration. Actually, the majority of my career over the last 35 to 40 years has been at the state level, working for several states in the upper Midwest or Great Lakes region of the United States, including primarily the state of Wisconsin, but also Illinois and Iowa. And I raise that point, number one, to clarify, I am not purporting to be a global subject matter expert on everything having to do with transportation, digitalization, and digital infrastructure. Rather a practitioner, experienced, maybe a little bit burned out practitioner with some perspectives on the context for roadway digital infrastructure. I'll also note that in the United States, we do not have a national highway agency as such that owns and operates the entirety of the national highway network the way Israel does, the way Britain does, and some other countries. Rather, the Federal Highway Administration administers funding, and it's the states, the 50 states, for example, that operate, maintain, and manage the interstate highway network and much of the remainder of the national highway network. And in total, ultimately, if you look at all roads in the United States, believe it or not, there are almost 30,000 different roadway jurisdictions, if you include states, counties, but also local governments. And so to anticipate the issue of risk, Edward, a primary risk is this issue of interjurisdictional coordination, but also public-private collaboration, which Israel, of course, provides, I think, some amazing models, as was just illustrated, for how to bridge those public and private sector divides. What I'd like to offer is really, my point is kind of threefold. National roadway digital infrastructure arguably is the cornerstone of broader multimodal transportation digital infrastructure. And the roadway network is arguably the most ubiquitous surface transportation mode. Secondly, there is no digitalization of transportation without a robust, sustainable, and ubiquitous digital infrastructure layer at national scale. And finally, as I alluded to already, a collaborative strategy between jurisdictions, between public-private sector, government, university, and industry is necessary to advance national roadway digital infrastructure, again, at national network scale, not just at the kind of ad hoc regional corridor, prototypical pilot deployment scale, but at a sustainable, coordinated national, or in some cases, even continental scale. Primary measure of success for me personally will be for this presentation is if I hear from some of you following this that you're interested in collaborating and partnering with us in the Federal Highway Administration in developing a national roadway digital infrastructure strategy, which we're commencing through initial stakeholder engagement in early 2023. That'll be one of three contexts I want to offer briefly for an interest in roadway digital infrastructure. The first one relates to my program context, which is roadway automation integration. The second relates to a historical context and some trends I would respectfully observe that I think are tipping point type trends. So I realize time is of the essence. You'll hear kind of three facets of perspective from me, one in a programmatic context, one in a historical context, observing trends, and then one in a strategic context as we seek to advance this national strategy. In the programmatic context, again, my title is actually Transportation Automation Program Manager and has been for the last 5 years here at the Federal Highway Administration. Over the last 3 years, we've been working carefully to develop what will be our first high-level system document for the integration of automation into the roadway network. We're calling it the Roadway Automated Driving System Integration concept of operations specifically for roadway transportation agencies. The objective of that quote unquote CONOPS is to offer a high level systemic definitional framework for collaborating in advancing the integration of automation into the roadway network. And this stair-step diagram is kind of the cornerstone premise of the CONOPS. And it is suggesting that as we move forward in time from left to right along the horizontal axis, and we integrate specific waves of ADS or automated vehicle use cases, specific types of vehicles in specific settings, they will need to go through a progression from in the near term or at the base level testing and accommodation of exceptional isolated operation. But as they emerge, they will be integrated as part of a mixed fleet, largely in a distributed part of that mixed fleet. But ultimately, as there is densification and as more automated vehicles of similar and diverse use cases come in proximity to one another, there'll need to be more connectivity and cooperation between them. So this progression from automation testing and isolated operation accommodation to more holistically integrated operation of automated systems to cooperative automation, and ultimately to kind of the nirvana eventuality in which everything will be automated perhaps someday, is the premise. And as we look at this and consider waves of use cases, for example, in the near term, the yellow up and to the right arrow, in the medium term, the green up and to the right arrow, and then in the long term, eventually the red up and to the right arrow. We know that there are use cases that are ahead. For example, truck automation on freeways in the interstate highway system, I would offer is part of this yellow wave and is actually already moving into the automation integration phase. There are others like broader scale full deployment of robo-taxis, which may be part of the green phase. And then perhaps, arguably the red arrow would be personally owned, very expensive personally owned automated vehicles, which may become cost effective sometime in the foreseeable future. So what drives those arrows up and to the right? Well, we believe that it is this systemic view of how the vehicle and the infrastructure system are cyber physically connected, and in fact are increasingly fusing together into a single quote unquote vehicle roadway system. And so our premise in the CONOPS is that in the horizontal plane, we need digital infrastructure to accommodate this incremental fusion of the vehicle and the roadway environment, the vehicle and other road users, including bicyclists, pedestrians, vulnerable road users, basically mobile users of the roadway network. In the vertical plane, we recognize that there are institutional systems, including those that I have worked for over the years and currently work for, that support often from a government perspective, but increasingly in a public-private collaborative mode, this vehicle infrastructure system fusion, ultimately for serving the people at the top of this diagram, which are human beings in communities and businesses, people traveling, people shipping goods. And so in the horizontal plane, we see digital infrastructure for the purpose of vehicle infrastructure systems integration. In the vertical plane, we see the integration of human interaction between those that support largely government functions and those that benefit from those functions and ultimately pay for those functions within communities. You'll also note, I'll say incidentally, the four I'll say principles or values, which are in the corner of this diagram: efficient operations, a safe system, equitable benefits and impacts, and interoperable systems. And we're offering those as kind of our primary public policy context for advancing the mechanisms represented in the middle of this diagram, again, for the purpose of advancing automation integration. So that's one of three, and I'll keep, Edward, I do have my eye on the clock, so I'll keep moving along. But so that is an illustration of how myself as a practitioner, looking to the context of automation integration or programmatic context for digital infrastructure, view it. Quite frankly, why I've been allowed to speak to you today, because of that relevance to my current role. Historically, the premise of need for some sort of roadway digital infrastructure is actually longstanding. It goes over 80 years. Don't worry, I won't go year by year, but I will allude back to 1939 when at the World's Fair, General Motors and other industry interests that saw the profit potential of building highways and selling people cars to drive on them presented something called Futurama, which was a life-size scale or near life-size scale diorama. You can see the people in the diagram on the left, that kind of Disneyland style. We're peering in on this diorama showing this ideal of massive highways carved through the middle of cities, carrying this imaginary free flow traffic. What was incidental to that scheme is on the right. There actually were envisioned control bridges or radio communication bridges that would have been, again, government owned, government installed, government operated, telematic capabilities to interface between the roadway environment, the roadway agency, probably also enforcement agencies, and the vehicle on the highway. This notion of, I do see a question, I'm sorry. Okay, I saw a hand up. Sorry about that. So this was a diorama, something imagined. There was actually a prototype of initial roadway digital infrastructure, something called the National Proving Grounds for Freeway Service and Patrol, Freeway Service and Surveillance and Control. It was deploying the Detroit area starting in the late 1950s, about 1959. So about 20 years after the vision of Futurama, it was realized in a prototypical fashion in the Detroit area. A lot of the capabilities that you see on this slide, the notion of a control room with video surveillance, active, conditions, display boards, lane control capabilities, ramp metering, parallel arterial traffic signal system management, all the things you'll still see presented to you today across the United States as modern traffic management technologies. I would argue with slightly more clunky technologies were actually being demonstrated in the late 1950s and early 1960s. With coaxial cable, twisted wire pair, communication, low-level, basic, rudimentary digital infrastructure, all of it government-owned, government-operated, government-deployed. So that's my emphasis point. Is throughout the 20th century, we saw this vision of digital infrastructure premised fundamentally, in fact, almost exclusively on government-owned telecommunications infrastructure. In some respects, this culminated in the 1990s when the United States, again, with a really strong federal ego and federal role, pursued something called the automated highway system. And the automated highway system was basically a small fleet of vehicles with the trunks packed with desktop PC era computing equipment, communications equipment, leaky coax cable as a mobile data telecommunications capability, magnetic wands or studs in the pavement that magnetometers could sniff their way down the roadway, and adaptive cruise control and some automated braking based on radar, and again some more rudimentary technologies of that day. The program went from about 1993 to 1997. There was a small series of demonstrations, including the one on the left, which was a string of 1997 Buick LeSabres, automatically driving down a section of freeway. Actually, I think that was in San Diego. The cost to go from a concept to this set of demonstrations in 2022 dollars would have been about $100 million. The United States Congress was so impressed that they pulled the plug effectively on the program, and to some extent, a lot of that energy and vision towards government-owned infrastructure connectivity migrated into what remains of the US DOT 5.9 gigahertz roadside unit-based connected vehicle program. Industry went in a very different direction. DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Programs Agency in the United States, sponsored something called the Grand Challenge in 2004 to 2007. And industry, MIT was mentioned, Carnegie Mellon, Stanford, others developed thanks to LiDAR and GPS and other technological breakdowns, automated vehicles that could operate completely independent of of any dependency on the roadway infrastructure. In fact, not even relying on accurate digital maps on board of the infrastructure, but on, in effect, mobile sensing, mobile computing capabilities that we ended up with and still have arguably in the palm of our hands, thanks to Steve Jobs and the 2007 introduction of the iPhone. So what is the outcome, or what is the premise of this digital infrastructure context in looking at it historically? Well, clearly we're at a tipping point. I think a primary aspect of that tipping point has been, so far in the 21st century, a pivot from reliance on dedicated spectrum, government-owned telecommunications media, and government dominance in general, towards a more blended public-private collaboration in developing and offering connectivity technologies and connectivity solutions. As was mentioned earlier, institutionally, we've gone from a civil engineering-dominated culture that's about government buying and deploying infrastructure to a cross-disciplinary institutional capability, as much about legal and financial and procurement and partnership innovation as it is technology and infrastructure innovation and deployment. And finally, we've gone from a very simplistic policy context to blindly moving a lot of cars very fast to a more holistic, safe system context, a sustainable view of community connectivity and user-oriented accessibility, and ultimately national synchronization of market-driven deployment towards users and customers, as opposed to isolated, ad hoc, technologically unique pilot and prototypical deployments. Final context would be a strategic context. We are in the process, and this is actually the first audience we're actually sharing in a friendly, open, inviting feedback and education. Over the last couple of years, we've developed this internal working definition for what we characterize, or would characterize, digital infrastructure to be. And I would offer that if you're going to develop a strategy for something, you need at least a starter conceptual definition. You need a systemic view of the technological foundations and inputs, which we'll talk about in a minute. But then ultimately, you need to move towards kind of a shared community understanding of feasible outputs from those inputs, and some shared sense of priorities for societal outcomes. So definition, inputs, outputs, and outcomes. It starts with definition. What we're saying in this definition is that for roadway digital infrastructure, we're talking about information exchange among public and private users and owners and operators of the roadway system. It consists of both a information and communication technology layer, but also a perhaps arguably equally important institutional and business model layer that interfaces and actually feeds that technological layer. And for those of us to have legitimacy from the government role of being involved, it arguably has to do about enabling collaborative management of the transportation system. The inputs or the technological foundations, and again, this is a point of departure. Admittedly, it's maybe a little bit simplistic and crude, but I'm looking forward to it evolving based on this conversation and follow up. But what we're suggesting is that the technological foundations are in the blue, basically the blue box included in the middle of this diagram, and that there are 4 layers of the technological component of roadway digital infrastructure. There's a digitization or sensing a layer. There's an intelligence layer, increasingly at the edge and in the cloud. There is a communications layer that fuses that intelligence and puts it into a decision support or knowledge management layer, in which data are converted into insights that those of us that are human beings can actually use. And so ultimately, in shorthand, these technological layers of roadway digital infrastructure take the physical world, convert it into data, and put it in a decision-making context in front of human beings that may be managing a trip, may be managing a business enterprise, may be managing an infrastructure system, may be managing emergency response or part of a community service. So what are some of the illustrative outputs that we anticipate will focus our development of this roadway digital infrastructure strategy moving forward? We're clearly the foundation, and my permission to be involved in this conversation relates to the base of this pyramid, which is optimizing both the operational performance, but also the life cycle asset performance of the roadway network. As I mentioned earlier, and perhaps I'm a little bit biased as a career road person, but the roadway network arguably is the foundation for three-dimensionally multimodal transportation performance optimization as well, including increasingly, in fact, I would say with accelerating intensity, the ground-air interface with UAS and advanced air mobility moving into the lower altitudes and into the ground-air operational interface. More broadly, the need to integrate roadway and broader multimodal transportation infrastructure with energy infrastructure, telecommunications infrastructure, food and water infrastructure systems, advanced manufacturing infrastructure systems, ultimately as a basis for broader integration of digital infrastructure and associated integration of services into smart communities and smart corridors. So finally, what are the societal outcomes that make the political and the business case for public sector investment, but also for necessary regulatory action, market optimization, planning or initiatives, other things that require higher level public policy engagement? Well, these are four that stand out to us so far. One clearly is the public health case for enhanced roadway safety through enhanced roadway user situational awareness, through incremental integration of vehicle automation and connectivity with individually, but even more so together, offer phenomenal potential to reduce the number of, for example, the 40,000 fatalities annually in the United States on our highway network, and arguably the much more tragic, serious injury that in some respects can have much more substantial societal and economic costs. Secondly, as was the case or the political case for the initial construction of the U.S. interstate highway system, military mobility, emergency response, affording more nimble reallocation and redistribution and relocation of response services, particularly when necessary in response to increasingly unpredictable and dramatic impacts related to climate change, whether it's snowstorms, hurricanes, but also reduced to human reaction to human-based threat. And I'm looking forward to hearing from Susan in a minute, given the background in I know she lived it much more intimately at a much higher level than I did, the importance of emergency response and resilience in that context. Third, related to global economic competitiveness in particular is the case for freight mobility and supply chain resilience, intermodal network level operational situational awareness being an underpinning to managing a national and a continental and a global supply chain, integration with government and industry logistics management strategies as part of that. And then finally, this issue of community accessibility, that affording all members of community, including those that may have been historically disadvantaged, access, whether it be virtual access to healthcare, education, other social and community services, or whether it be physical transport to access those services. So these are the four societal outcomes that we're viewing, at least initially, as our basis for roadway digital infrastructure strategy. I know I'm over on time, so I'll just go to the point of contact slide and look forward to further discussion as time allows at the end of the conversation, Edward.
Yes, thank you. We also already have a question to you. So at the end, I will be happy that you will address.
Okay.
Thank you very much, John, Sarah, I also make some remarks. So I also have a question to ask you, something interesting, maybe. I would like to pass microphone and screen to Susan. Susan actually is the CEO of Trafficland and former Chief of Staff of U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So Susan, please introduce yourself and also your brilliant presentation.
Thank you so much. So I will say that I am not a lifelong roadway person like John. And so I am also humbled and honored to be with all of you. This is really exciting for me. Like John, I'm already learning some things from each of you, and I'm really excited to learn more. So happy to add just a little bit from my perspective as the CEO of Trafficland. So just to give you guys a little bit of context, Edward mentioned just briefly a little bit of my bio. I was in government, U.S. government for a long time, in the Senate, in the U.S. Department of Justice, and then in the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And so I bring that perspective brought it with me into the private sector. And that will get to one of the points I'll talk about later in terms of risks going forward in this effort. But shifting from government to private sector, if any of you have done that already, it's an extreme paradigm shift. And for private sector companies like ours, who may not have previously worked in government or dealt with government in this particular company's early stages, it's hard to figure out how to work with them effectively because government does not move at the pace of business, nor does government innovation, if that's even a word or a phrase that makes sense. And I would question that there is any innovation in government. It really comes from the private sector. So Trafficland began, just for context, literally the day before 9/11 is when our cameras first went live. So we're a company that's over 20 years old. Clearly, we were founded when I was a baby. So, I have not been the CEO for 20 years, I'm teasing. But the day before 9/11, our first cameras went live, and those were in Northern Virginia. And we actually had sight on the Pentagon the day before 9/11. So on 9/11, second day of operations, we've got cameras. We were an authorized, Trafficland is America's only authorized aggregator and integrator of road traffic cameras. And that's, as I think John and maybe Revital mentioned, that is because of individual interjurisdictional relationships with state and local DOTs. We now have over 60 DOT partnerships, contractual relationships. So we are an authorized redistributor of traffic video for multiple uses, and we can talk about that if you guys would like. Because of that, at the very beginning, 9/11, we had Northern Virginia and a couple other states. We had a website, that's how it started, and road drivers could click on the website and pick which cameras they wanted to look at. So on 9/11, plane flies into the Pentagon, and you can imagine our website crashed with the volume of people trying to see what's going on from literally around the world. So from that auspicious start, we've spent the next 20 years building relationships state by state, county by county in some cases, locality by locality, to be the trusted partner for state and local government agencies to provide, take their video. We have a video quality monitoring application that basically enhances the quality of their video, feeds it back to the DOT, state and locals for their free use for typically their 511 sites. So in the US, that's like law enforcement and state and local and federal law enforcement sharing operations. So we get that back, give that back to them for free. That's what they get out of the relationship. What we get out of the relationship is agreement from them that we can redistribute the video, that we're authorized to redistribute the video. So we share those video images with broadcast media. So you'll see our cameras used in CNN broadcasts, Fox News broadcasts. We share it with other government agencies. You can imagine there's a lot of three-letter government agencies in the US who would like video of roadways and other areas where we have cameras. So we have relationships with them. And so now over the course of the past 20 years, we've become essentially this gateway provider, and we're a network that is a gateway provider of additional analytics tools to meet customer demand, to meet DOT demand, to meet broadcast media demand. There's a lot of different verticals that have video demand, and it really goes to everything each one of the speakers thus far has talked about, which is fusing multiple data layers and then being able to provide it back to a variety of users in an actionable format. The key phrase I think somebody used is just actionable data. That's what we need. What situational awareness should provide is actionable data. So as John said, we can take all of this and put it in front of humans and make solid decisions for our communities, for security reasons, for roadway efficiencies, for emissions, better environmental decisions. So that's what we're trying to do, and that's what we are doing actually. And so because we've spent so much time and millions and millions of dollars building this network, we're now at the point where we're really excited that we've been able to start bringing in analytics partners. So you can kind of view us as sort of a platform. We've got the network and the platform, and now we're out looking for best of breed analytics companies to partner with. I love what Rona was talking about in the collaboration with the Israel Living Lab. That's really what we are in a for-profit organization in the US. So we're saying, okay, we've already established the network. You don't need to go knock on DOT doors, one by one, because it's going to take you 20 years to replicate this, if they will even let you, because in some DOTs, we are the exclusive. They do not allow anybody else to pull their video. And we have equipment in those DOTs. In over 20 of the DOTs, we have equipment in their server rooms. And we're the only authorized outside vendor allowed to go in there and pull streams, video streams directly. So that allows us to provide higher quality video, which is obviously really important for analytics companies. So let me get back over to my notes. Okay. So that just gives you kind of the context of who we are as a company and what we're trying to do from here. In the US, and John could speak to this even more than I can, but federal, state, and local government agencies, as I mentioned, they have invested billions of dollars in roadway camera networks. Somebody mentioned the importance of maintenance. That is a never-ending job for these state, local, and federal agencies, is maintaining those roadway camera networks. And so the only the data that you receive is only as good as the network that you have. And in the US, there is just a need for constant investment into the infrastructure. As John mentioned, we're not as what they saw back in the 1950s and planned out in the 1970s and 1990s. They thought was cutting edge, and now we look at it and go, that's so rudimentary. In some states, they're still operating on that rudimentary system. And we're trying to figure out how to sort of drag it into the 21st century and utilize the analytics partners that we have and tools to bring more value out of what is a fundamentally rudimentary camera system that these states have. So there's really multiple layers of need by the DOTs. There's a need for enhanced infrastructure. As you all may know, back in November of last year, our United States Congress passed a $1 trillion infrastructure bill. Part of that, will go to smarter roadways. There's competition going on for that now. As I mentioned, government does not move quickly, so it will be years before that $1 trillion is all obligated and those projects are actually completed. But it's underway now, and there's a funding need by state and local governments and at the federal level to enhance and really upgrade the network infrastructure across the country, because there is no unified, there is no national, roadway system in the US like there is in Israel. It's a challenge. I joined the Department of Homeland Security when it was an infant organization. And my job as Chief of Staff of Management was to bring 22 disparate agencies together and try to get them to play together in the same sandbox. That was really good training for the job I have now, because now I'm trying to work with all these various DOTs around the country and get them to play in the same sandbox, because I'm sharing with them, look, you've got a partner DOT, or you've got a fellow DOT 2 states over who is applying an analytics tool that meets a need that you have. So let's collaborate, let's work together. And there are so many silos in US government that prevent different agencies from working together. And so it's tough from a private sector side to try to break down some of those silos and bring them together. We're getting there, but we got a long way to go. So I'm a little envious of how Israel works, because I think you guys are much more collaborative. I've been there many times, worked with companies there many times, love it. One of my favorite places in the world to be. But I love the ability to collaborate. I love this forum because I'm really excited to hopefully collaborate with many of you, even from going forward from this conference. Let's see me go to my next note. Sorry, I'm getting all excited. I'm losing track of my notes. So advances. Let's talk about the current situation a little bit more with the DOT. So advances in DOT traffic camera network digitization have led to an expanding demand for DOT traffic video, as I mentioned, for use in a wide variety of ways. So video analytics-based software development that uses AI and machine learning to support new applications for multiple industries. We're seeing it. We're serving multiple industries. So from transportation management, traffic management, weather information, obviously to autonomous, self-driving vehicles. We're working on several connected car efforts right now with auto manufacturers. Those new applications can also offer support for DOT operations by analyzing their network's video to make highly accurate observations, gets back to our point about actionable data, and then provide alerts about traffic, road weather conditions, vehicle counts, accidents, wrong way drivers. That's all happening right now. Not every DOT has deployed that, obviously, but the technology, as you well know, is there. The number of roadway cameras in DOT networks have increased. So there's, population expansion, suburban sprawl, urban growth. There's constantly additional cameras being added to networks, and in many states, it's becoming very challenging for them to manage that, both across their operations and in sharing their content externally with the growing number of entities that are seeking access. So that's where TrafficLand has been able to create a niche in that we can, because we're a trusted vendor with the DOTs, they can say, hey, I've got this, particular external stakeholder who needs access to my video. I don't have the bandwidth on my server to be able to do that because I have to reserve my server space for our, local partners, for their internal stakeholders. We need you to refeed, the video to them in a way that is usable by them. And everybody obviously operates at different levels of technology. So we years ago created, a basic API that is usable by external stakeholders and is approved by the DOTs. We can put parameters around that so that certain stakeholders can't see certain cameras if that's what the DOT requests. So in that way, we get to be sort of under the tent, with the DOTs. And because of that, we get some insights into what they're looking for right now, what their requirements are. We're in constant conversations with all of our DOTs. So just to give you a sense of what we're hearing and working on with some departments of transportation around the US at the local and state level, they are looking for, this is not going to shock you because I've already heard some people say some of these same things, but they are looking for applications that can offer improved workflow efficiency, lower operating costs, easier maintenance systems. They can address public safety, they can address environmental concerns, and obviously the cherry on top, what they really want is something that will generate revenue. State and local budgets have been squeezed for years. Inflation's not making it any easier. And so if there's a solution that can help them generate revenue, all the better. One particular example of how that's happened in the US, and it may be in place in Israel as well, I think it is in place in Israel as well, is red light cameras. So companies came out, there were two primary companies that came out and put their own infrastructure in certain intersections, high traffic intersections, and they would snap a picture of somebody who ran a red light, and it would automatically send a ticket to that person, to whoever it is associated with the license plate, and the revenue goes back to whatever that locality is. Well, that generated millions for a lot of localities. Now, There are still cases caught up in court over that. There's privacy concerns. There's all sorts of those things that we're dealing with in the US. But in the meantime, the localities that have implemented that are praying that those court cases go on forever because they're continuing to cash the checks. So that the slow pace of the court system is to their benefit right now. But that's just one example of a revenue generating solution using existing camera and network infrastructure. And that's really what a big driver for a lot of the state and local organizations and even some DOTs. And other things that the DOTs are looking for, they want to improve roadway traffic and weather situational awareness. That's what end users need. When you get in a car, a person gets in the car in the morning to commute to work, they want to know what does the traffic look like ahead of me? They want to know what's my weather between here and there, particularly if you've got a longer commute. And that is doable now. We provide that now through TrafficLand, through our API, through our website. There we have an app people can use. So we can provide that now, but now it's what can we add to it? Let's make it more value added data so that end users can not only be aware of, well, I know there's a blockage ahead or whatever, but what is that blockage? Should I take an alternate route? Is there a storm ahead of me that's going to impact the slipperiness of the roads? All those sorts of things. The sense, as you guys know, the sensors are there, the tools are there. It's just a matter of implementing in a smart and efficient and effective way that drivers and end users, stakeholders can use and implement. DOTs want to enable more efficient and cost-effective video sharing across their own operations, their own DOT operations and platforms, and with external partners. So the infrastructure that was built early on, as John referenced in his presentation, it was expensive, and the older it gets, the harder and more costly it is to maintain. And so there's this move, and I think the infrastructure bill, the $1 trillion infrastructure bill that was passed in Congress will help facilitate some of this. There is a move to just bring the hardware into the 21st century across the country. Some states have done it better than others already. There are some states that are really lagging. Other DOT requirements, they want to integrate content into their platforms and workflows from new sources. So they want to integrate incident reports, they want to integrate in-car platforms, they want to integrate drone footage, they want to integrate what they're getting from social media, alerts that people put on social media. They want to gain insight into their traffic camera network status. So this goes into the maintenance point that I think maybe Rona talked about. So what is their camera availability in real time? What's their camera availability? What's their video quality? What's the performance history of any given camera? Are they tracking preventative maintenance or ongoing maintenance of their network? Believe it or not, that's something that you would think would be pretty basic, but there are DOTs just really struggling with that, in part because of the growth in their states and how large their networks have become. So what opportunities does that present? Well, I'm always going to look at what the opportunities are through the lens of, obviously, what does it mean for TrafficLand? What does it mean for our company, and how can we be that gateway network to meet DOT demands and other end user demands? So opportunities for us, and hopefully to collaborate with some of you as well, is to offer applications that apply additional video analytics to the network we currently have to improve DOT's ability to identify traffic and road weather issues, to gain situational awareness, to facilitate effective responses internally. So not just law enforcement response, emergency response, but in some cases, medical response, public safety agencies, media, and the public. Due to the harsh outdoor environments that we all know traffic cameras live in, DOTs need applications that can automate analysis of their network roadway camera video quality to help streamline their monitoring, their evaluation for quality and maintenance purposes. There are some tools out there for that. There has not been a great solution yet that meets that need across the board. So that would, for DOTs, what that means is it goes back to a fundamental need they have, which is to reduce the overhead costs of maintenance and operating these systems. And there just needs to be greater automation of network analysis to feed that information back to them and give them the actionable data they need to keep their networks performing and meeting the needs of their internal and external stakeholders. We also have an opportunity to offer DOTs applications to improve access to real-time video from their own camera networks for command centers, even remote at field locations. So Edward mentioned I was Chief of Staff for the Hurricane Katrina response, the federal response to Hurricane Katrina back in 2005. That was the largest hurricane that has, and most devastating hurricane that has ever hit the U.S. coastline. It affected 5 states, displaced 1 million residents down just in the New Orleans area, and cost over $1 billion in terms of federal response funds, and that doesn't speak to even the state and local funds that were put into place there. And so the DOTs would love to have better real-time and streaming video. If we'd have had streaming video at the time that Hurricane Katrina happened, we would have been able to direct the evacuation routes better. We would have been able to give real-time footage to the first responders that were trying to get in to reroute where they needed to go. We had a problem of 1 million residents trying to come out and first responders trying to come in, and it was a mess. We've come a long way since 2000. We've come a long way since 2005. Yes,
Susan, yes, it's actually amazing presentation. Thank you so much. Sorry that I'm cutting you.
No,
right
no,
now
okay.
we are just a little bit over time right now. Yes,
sure.
yes. And
do you want me to close? Do you want me to close with the 2 risks I would mention?
Yes, of course, please.
Very short.
2 risks.
One of them's already been mentioned. The interjurisdictional issues due to the multiple state and local DOTs and stakeholders, getting those people to play together in the same sandbox, and then just the slow pace of government bureaucracy. You know, technology routinely outpaces the speed at which government can move and implement, and so that's the challenge for the private sector, is to bring the government along.
Yes, well, I also have a question about the privacy and how actually broad public accepts the technology that is entering breaching their privacy. But it's at the end. Maybe also Stephen will be able to reply. Thank you a lot. We actually covered the topic of infrastructure right now, and I would like to move to the other aspect, actually end users and human factors. And I would like to invite Professor Taron Gilad and Elit Oppenheim from the Ben-Gurion University of the Negev to share with us their insights, please.
Okay, thank you, Edward. Okay. I hope you see my presentation. Okay, so what Elit and I will present is the outcomes of a recent European project, the Horizon project that we were part of. And both of us are human factors and transportation research, but from the aspect of the road users' needs. So, of course, our work is always around road users' needs. So I want first to address this issue of digital revolution, and what we're seeing if we're looking at those big revolutions. Well, they're getting shorter and shorter, and we didn't even have enough time to digest the 4th revolution, the IoT, the connectivity, and we are already moving into the 5th revolution, which is more responsive and human-oriented. I mean, if the 4th revolution was mostly focused on technology, connectivity, the ability of machines and infrastructure to talk with one another, very quickly it became apparent that machines and humans also need to talk together, and humans need to integrate in the environment. So the role of people, because we are here to stay, right, and we want to be served by all of this great technology, is more emphasized in what we call the 5th revolution or the society 5.0 and so forth. So looking at that, we can look a little bit at the RESIST project, which started the month that a bridge collapsed in Genoa. It was completely not connected to the fact that the bridge collapsed, But this project dealt with extreme events in bridges and tunnels. So the idea was that we want to protect users and ensure seamless mobility and avoid, of course, loss of human life or financial costs due to infrastructure failures, increase resilience and reduce the vulnerability by having more tools to detect and identify patterns that may cause risk, and also during an extreme event, more means to handle and manage. And Susan, to some degree, talked about the need to have information in real time when an event occurs. And lastly, of course, is the element of reacting, providing optimal information to minimize the impact of this extreme event on general transportation and restore the traffic flow as quickly as possible. So I think we all are aiming for the same thing, which is we want everything to be smooth. We don't want surprises. We don't want extreme, terrible, unpredicted events, and we want to react fast. So the resist architecture, very similar to what Susan explained in a way about her vision, and maybe some of the highway administration as well, dealt with also with the engineering part of understanding what was the infrastructure failure and whether the road can continuously be used or has to be blocked, and etc. But for us, for BGU, the interesting part was this part here, which is the application layer. And in this application layer, there was a control center, but there was also a very strong emphasis on this application where you're basically bringing in information into the road users' cars. So you are directing information to cars, to drivers or road users. And this is exactly our module within this larger infrastructure. So the Resist app serves as a highway user mobile device, and it's connected to the mobility continuity module, which of course lets you know if the road is clear and what is the problem and what can be done. And all of this was aimed for bridges and tunnels. And our role in this was to develop a theoretical model that assessed highway users' behaviors and stress, and by understanding that, identify the information needs that users have. So if the speakers before me talked about users and road users as one chunk, what we are saying is there is also variability within this population, and we actually need to address different needs of different road users while they are experiencing this event. So the first thing we did was we created a questionnaire to assess behavior of drivers in extreme events. We assessed the way people perceive extreme events. In this case, it was bridges and tunnels, and the critical factors for understanding their characteristics that are relevant to coping in such events, how and when they would like to receive information. And of course, we had socio-demographic data, driving characteristics, risk-taking tendencies and coping strategies, all self-reported, and communication. Now, if you think about it, there is a lot. This is a lot. And if you have to reveal so much information in order to get information from your road manager, people may be reluctant to do that. And also, this is very cumbersome to collect a lot of this data. So our goal was to see if we can actually reduce the number of items that we need to collect in order to identify the key issues that are related to people's needs and coping and stress, and then to create clusters so that you can provide information or granularity of information based on the cluster that the road user is in. Of course, then to apply it into the Resist app in this case. So we had a variety of respondents. All of the respondents were from Israel, because right when we started collecting this, the corona started, and we couldn't have access to any road users within our partner countries, which were Italy and Greece. And we elicited these 26 questionnaire items that are related to driving habits, previous experience with emergencies in general, so not just road emergencies. Of course, in Israel, we have all kinds of other emergencies, so we could tap many kinds of emergencies. Susan mentioned weather. Maybe weather is not exactly the most critical emergency in Israel, but we definitely have our own. So each place has their own share of different emergencies. And we looked at technology propensity, because it's very important that users or road users accept these technologies, risk-taking tendency and all that. So all in all, our model explained about 62% of the variance of our participants, and we identified 9 factors. So of all these questionnaire items, 26, we can look at these 9 factors as the most important. So driving habits, experience in driving, whether in a bridge or a tunnel or under emergencies, general experience in emergencies, perceived risk, willingness to use applications, trust in technology, self-declared risk tendency, avoidance strategies, and coping strategies. So once we had this, we could start creating a cluster analysis and try to see if we can parse people into clusters by their needs and their desires from this application. So we included all the aspects that I showed before within the cluster analysis, and we identified 3 stereotypical personas: the panic, the anxious, and the calm. And the 3 personas differ in their needs and requirements from an app when an extreme event or an emergency event occurs. So to apply, we classify each road user into one of the 3 possible conditions. The panic would need support, the anxious would like some support, and the cool would need different kinds of information, because it's not an issue of stress for them. And this is done using a scoring method. So it's actually rather simple. And we from our data, and of course this needs to be validated in other populations or situations, but in our data we gave the score of 1 for people who are here, and 2, 3, and 4 here, and 5 here. So you see, for example, a 26-year-old female who drives 8,000 kilometers annually will fall right here, and the score would be 3. Then we look at people's self-declared risk tendency on a scale of 1 to 3, coping strategy, and avoidance after an existing event. So for example, the same person, if she declares a medium risk tendency, 2, panic coping of 1, which means she's panicking, and she considers avoiding driving a tunnel or bridge after she had some kind of a bad experience, or her score will be a summary of all of these different characteristics together. So the outcome would be that we would allocate this user into the appropriate cluster, and then they will get the information through the indications of that color. So if they need support, so if they have like a score between 4 to 8, they have certain preferences about what information they want to have, and how it should be presented to them, whether they want it by media, whether they want electronic billboards, whether they want it by the app, and so forth, whether they want it before they start the drive or after. and so forth. So our the example that we chose had 3 from the beginning and then 4. So she would fall within the category of need support, and her information settings would set accordingly. Of course, there are, of course, limitations to this allocation module because it's based on the centrality of the clusters. So, and also people can shift. For example, if I'm driving with my children, maybe I am in higher stress. If I'm driving alone, maybe I have a lower stress. So one of the things that we applied is that people can reallocate themselves. So if I was allocated to a level that I'm not comfortable with, I can always increase or decrease the level. Of course, the limitations were that we only tested it on Israeli applicants, but and not in general, but the general framework is very robust and can be adjusted and applied also to other domains or other needs. Our current work is called the Rubicon, Road Users Behavior in Advanced Context, using during the era of shared road space of autonomous connected vehicles and human drivers. And what we're trying to do now is we are basically enhancing these models and trying to further understand how, when, and what do road users want information. But now we're also including the issue of connected vehicles and the presence of autonomous vehicles. So imagine that you're driving your level 1 car. In front of you, someone is riding a robo taxi, and another driver is leisurely traveling in a level 3 vehicle. Now all of them all of you together face a major road event, and the road is blocked. So the question is, who should be informed? Is it you, the driver? Is it the robo taxi that's in front of you? Is it the autonomous driver in L3? Is it the riders of that vehicle? Should everybody receive the same information? And who will decide about the evacuation routes? Like, would you follow a robo taxi without knowing where it's going just because the app said follow the lead vehicle and so forth? So connectivity and the variability within this and the type of vehicles that share the road clearly increases the complexity that already exists, even if you're looking at regular cars. And as we're seeing that we are expected to see more electric, more shared mobility, more autonomous or connected vehicles, then obviously this issue of how are they going to integrate when we have mixed traffic? So all kinds of vehicles, all kinds of drivers, some people that are merely passengers and not drivers, and so forth. So right now we are looking at those research questions, looking at what influences the stress of road users when you have mixed traffic, how and when should road users be informed, and looking at all the opportunities that exist or can emerge from this. Of course, there are many open questions, like how social influence is interpreted in case of automated or autonomous vehicles. Am I going to follow them? Are they going to follow me? There are a lot of issues that we don't know. How will the reporting of crowd-sourced major events act in automated and autonomous eras? We also don't know that, and what should be included in the warnings and the alerts, considering the fact that there are multiple issues that need to be addressed. And you also need to refer to the fact that not everybody around you is of the same type, and not everybody has a human driver or an active human driver. So, and this is basically it. And I'd like to also acknowledge, of course, the RESIST project and the funding we received from RESIST, and also the current funding that we have from the Israeli Smart Transportation Research Center and our partners from Spain and Netivei.
Yeah. Thank you, Ta. It's really interesting and actually amazing issues that despite of automation on roads and automated cars, we still need a lot of information for decision making as drivers or maybe passengers. Thank you very much. So I would like to invite Christoph Romba from the Flemish Road Authority and head of work group for data for CEDAR. If I'm wrong, Christoph, please correct me, to make a presentation.
Many different hats. Thank you to give me the word, Edward. Many different hats from my perspective. I'll share my screen. I prepared a PowerPoint and will try my best to take you all through in the next 20 minutes. I have to say, give the man a stage and it's hard to get him off again. So feel free to interrupt, Edward, when I'm over my time frame.
Yeah, okay, please. And if you can open your presentation in a full screen mode, it's also great.
There we go. I'll just try to be creative to dodge some of the windows. So yeah, Christoph Romba from the Flemish Agency for Roads and Traffic. Road and Traffic Agency is basically, we are managing, maintaining and optimizing the road network that was entrusted to us in Flanders, Belgium. You see a map of that road network. We are organizing the traffic management on the roads and also doing the asset management for all of the roads. And in that activity also helping to shape mobility policy from the field, that is. So we manage about 7,000 kilometers of road and about 7,700 kilometers of bicycle lanes, but also a lot of other assets. Here is just a flavor of it. I think we have already heard some of the points, the new trends that are coming our way. Obviously, we have the whole mobility as a service concept, which is more than just a concept. You can see also automotive companies have already, or some of them, I should say, have already created a sub-brand mass company because they know that when the level 4 autonomous vehicle is ready, it might happen that less vehicles are sold, especially when you share those level 4 vehicles, like in a robotaxi scenario. So they are also looking at gaining repetitive income from offering those vehicles in a mass model. Some other trends we can obviously detect in Belgium. We have the transportdata.be website. It is the Belgian national access point, the national access points which are mandatory to be installed as a consequence of the ITS framework directive, which is coming from European installations, DigiMove. Next to those national access points, there is also a new, relatively new movement, which is NAPCore. Europe is looking for further centralizing, further streamlining those national access points in terms of data quality. So you have really one digital infrastructure where also automotive companies or very large organizations can tap into to support mobility as a service. I've highlighted some other elements that we can see happening in Belgium. You can see mobility applications like Skipper are gaining a lot of momentum. We even see a bank investing $7 million in one of these applications. Skipper is typically the installation that you use if you have mobility budget, no longer company car, but mobility budget. Where do you go to spend your mobility budget? That is the one of the applications there is Skipper app. We also see the first initiatives, Data for Road Safety, European initiative, where data from the actual vehicle, safety-related data from the vehicle is exchanged with traffic management centers, and this information can then be offered also to other road users, not just on the highway, but also on secondary roads. And then two more elements, building information modeling, so digitizing of how you develop, operate and maintain roads is also very strongly digitized. And another important Flemish program is the Mobility Data program, something that I've written myself a few years ago. It is our CITS Day 1 and Day 1.5 services program. These are already there, all of these trends. We see some new things on the horizon as well. Starting with the left top is the whole digital twin story. So building a digital copy of the physical infrastructure, which would allow you to simulate sound, emission, propulsion, etc. in a city or at a regional level. On the right-hand side, this is a picture I took myself in October 21. This is a level 3 autonomous vehicle, and I should actually move it already to the other side because we are a good year beyond, and we can see these vehicles are already coming to market. We at least in Germany, there is one vehicle brand that has introduced automated lane keeping system, which means that on the highway at speeds of less than 60 kilometers per hour, read stop and go traffic, that this vehicle will completely run by itself within the same lane, and the driver can focus on secondary tasks. The driver still needs to be in the driving seat, and it's one of the conditions that is monitored, but it really means the automated driving is no longer something that's happening in the future. It is already happening today. Moreover, we can see that speed limit of 60 kilometers per hour already being pumped up. There is new legislation voted already, not really legislation, but a technical regulation in UNECE Working Party 29, which is ALKS Plus, Automated Lane Keeping System Plus, which pumps up the potential speed for automated driving to 130 kilometers per hour. But mostly also including automatic lane change. So from next January onwards, so let's say that's even less than 1 month from us, any automotive company that feels it is ready to introduce level 3 autonomous driving up until 130 kilometers per hour on the highway, including lane change, can apply for homologating these vehicles in any European country. That is nothing less than a revolution in place. Of course, you have the whole trend of the cellular communication, the debate, will these vehicles communicate via ITS G5 or the G5 cellular network? And we're only starting to roll out 5G. Well, already this week, I was at a meeting with DG Connect, and they are already testing 6G deployments. Next to that, a very important other trend is automation, not just on vehicle level, but also automation on how we are building and maintaining roads. So the connected and autonomous plant is also a project, and we can see very quick developments in that area as well, where we really have to act upon. As mentioned before, it can be quite hard for a government when you detect all of this. This is a first action that we have taken about 1.5 to 2 years ago. We said we have to get organized on innovation, and we did. We put a new framework in place with the portfolio management office and with 2 innovation engines, an innovation lab and a change lab. The PMO to which I belong is focusing on what do the star looker, as you can see, we're gazing at the stars to see what is popping up at the horizon, what do we have to do and what do we not have to do, what kind of initiatives do we need to filter and where do we need to focus more time on. And then the 2 labs are dedicated to doing projects and making sure those new innovations also find their way into our running business. We're focusing more than only on incremental or horizon 1 innovation, but our main focus is horizon 2 and horizon 3, means new services, new customers, and also disruption. So how do we manage that disruption from a Flemish government perspective, specifically oriented at the road agency? So focusing on one of those trends, why are we interested in connected and automated driving überhaupt? Well, Hillier in 2002 said that 94% of the accidents, the human aspect plays some role into the happening of the accident. So if you automate traffic, the question is, to what extent can you decrease that human error and also then thereby decreasing the number and the severity of accidents? It's a very technical discourse, obviously, and I think my American colleague, John Corbin, will be very happy because this is a picture I've been using for years that finds its origin in the US Department of Transport. You still today have two parallel items, which is really autonomous vehicle, meaning the vehicle is scanning 360 degrees around the vehicle, only using vehicle sensors. That is one trend, and another trend is the connected vehicle, which means that the vehicle is also using information from third parties and communicating with either other vehicles or with infrastructure. The big advantage of connected vehicles is that how far the vehicle can see, or the event horizon, that you're much less limited in terms of how far that vehicle can see. There is an ongoing consensus that the two systems, the autonomous and the connected, are, let's say, leveraged best when you talk about the connected and automated vehicle. And I can see some real revolution happening in that area as well, because at TRA, Traffic Research Arena in Lisbon, a few weeks ago, CEDR, the European Road Agency umbrella organization, has signed an agreement with EUCAR, and EUCAR is the R&D division of automotive in Europe. We signed an agreement there to do joint research on vehicle automation. This is, for me, unseen in the automotive field, because the automotive is basically saying, yes, there will be instances where we cannot automate. Let's have a look at what those instances are and how road operators can contribute to closing those gaps, so we can expand the area where automated driving can be supported. Okay, going on to the next. I think this is also very known to you. That vehicle which is on the road is scanning on the left side the physical infrastructure, but also starting more and more to connect with that digital infrastructure. The right side is an exact copy. It's a BIM model of the road that you see on the left side. And so the big challenge there is that in terms of the data that you offer from both systems, how granular is it, and is it granular enough? How do you keep those two systems synchronized with each other? And what happens if there are any data conflicts? So there is 70 kilometers per hour in the digital model, but the actual road sign says 50, or vice versa. How do you capture those kind of data conflicts, and what happens in the actual vehicle? What about cybersecurity? We have already debated. That's the advantage of speaking as one of the last speakers. But the cybersecurity aspect is something that cannot be underestimated. And also, what about if we support the vehicle to automate, can the vehicle also support us to supply data on the assets that we are managing? It's a cooperation model. For sure, there will be efficiency gains that we can leverage on. I'm not going to go through all of these slides. This is just to say that there's a lot of technology involved. There's a lot of technical terms involved, like operational design domain, which starts from the vehicle side, and ISAT, which is a relatively new term that talks about infrastructure service levels for automated driving. Where is, for me, an essential difference? Before, we were saying, as a road authority, you have one element on the road, for instance, a traffic sign, and it has a certain quality. When we want to support automated driving, we will have to get to a situation where it's not only one element on the road, but it's a stretch of road that we need to define what the quality is for that stretch of road. That's already a big challenge and a big step to be taken for a road administration. Again, there are several levels. Level A is the highest level of digital infrastructure. Level E is basically the physical infrastructure only. So we will, over the next couple of years, be gradually working on offering the highest level of ISAT. And these ISAT levels, they will also be dynamic. Imagine that communication falls out on a certain stretch of road. It can be that your level A is then dynamically going to level C, and what kind of automation you allow or you grant degraded to a lower level of automation, or just the opposite, vice versa. Depending on the conditions, you are asking to have more automation on a certain road section, depending on the conditions. Also here, operational design domain, there are various definitions. There's a Waymo definition. We can see there's also Society of Automotive Engineers definition recently, the J3016 definition. Again, I'm not going to read everything. The key message here is that the wider, if we really want to eliminate human error from driving, it's also in our favor in terms of road safety to expand the operational design domain. And that's one of the main reasons why we should also work together in the R&D that needs to happen to expand that ODD. So in Flanders, our CITS Day 1 and Day 1.5 rollout program has basically that task. It's the first step on our way to autonomous driving. And we will roll out a sustainable digital data infrastructure with about 29 innovative applications, not just oriented at vehicles and buses, trams, and heavy lorries, etc., but also for the active modes are in scope of our customers. Those 29 use cases will support 4 domains. So the intelligent traffic light and giving priority to certain groups is one of the top priorities that we have. Think about ambulance, firefighter, police. We want to give them strict priority when they are out for an urgent intervention. Also the typical other CITS road applications, so bringing the dynamic signs into the vehicle. We are doing partly also R&D on active road user modes, and also looking at, if we gather all that data in one system, what kind of policy decisions can we make based on the data that we are gathering for those 29 use cases. Now, this is basically how that digital backbone looks like. I won't bother you with all the technical details. It's just a picture to make me look smarter than I actually am. I heard security was one of the questions asked to one of the previous speakers. Well, we have a block here specifically with enrollment authority, authorization authority, and a route certificate authority that is really looking at how do we make that system cyber resilient, I should say. Never say that any system cannot be hacked, because I think any system can be hacked, but it's about cyber resilience. How fast can you respond to something when it happens? Whereas the biggest challenge for us here, and this is in this location, we are supplying public data to enable those CITS Day 1 functions. And we have to completely build a new ICT development, which is that public information provider. But moreover, each of those data sets that we are offering, they have been gathered, built historically to suit another purpose. This was just to inform local cities, local authorities about roadworks, for instance, and to cooperate with our the contractors that are working for us to build and maintain the roads. If we now are going to use the same information directly to road users, we are doing a lot of work on getting that data in the right shape for that purpose. So that's all of this got us working on a strategy on how do we become a digital road operator. It's been ongoing for about 2 years now. What are some of the key messages that I would like to transfer here? I could see historically in this debate, building a digital data backbone, it's extremely challenging to convince my board of directors, which is composed of road construction people. So they are civil engineers working with concrete, asphalt, building plans, etc. But they are not highly skilled in terms of ICT. So I asked myself the question, how do we get that message across better? And what I found was that we were talking a lot and too much on the bottom two layers of the operational model of an organization, which is the technology and the data. Is data important? Absolutely. But if you roll out new services, then you also have to have a look at what kind of processes are we using to support those new services. What kind of an organization do we need to support those new processes? And can we still do it with the old organization that we have in place, or do we have to change the organization as well? What kind of services do we really want to offer? Because in the new technological domain, the sky is the limit, but the business case should be right to choose a certain service. And last but not least, what is the vision? If we don't change the mission and the vision of our company, then you will never succeed in supporting a centralized data vision and a strategy that is creating values for the broader organization and for society. So my key message here is, when you talk about digital infra, you actually need to address all the layers of the operational model from a company. That is the main message. What we also found is that in a lot of these technological and societal trends, I've written down here road user, vehicle trends, and infrastructure trends, that very fast as an organization that is managing highways and secondary roads, but not city roads, that we see that what we do and how we do it, which services we are offering, can be changed quite dramatically. Even we can see that when we talk about data harnessing and information harnessing, that we have to exceed the mandate that we get traditionally. So we are already seeing that digitization is pushing us to central systems, which means that we might need to take a role in data management, where also can input their data, but we have to avoid that we come to, let's say, a medieval situation where traffic management and data that is gathered is happening in every city independently, because from a system perspective, you can only manage that when it's the data standards are the same, the systems are similar, can interact with each other. So what we do and how we do it is changing as well in this process of digitization. So ultimately, and this took quite a lot of debate with our senior management, we landed with a definition of our agency as a digital road operator. I'll quickly take you through. We are now an organization that uses data and information for safe, smooth, and sustainable mobility for all road users in Flanders. On one hand, we use data to invest in, maintain, and operate the road network more efficiently and effectively, and to further develop our expertise to provide quality consultancy services. On the other hand, we anticipate those social and technological trends. So it's really the innovation aspect is now in the core business of our organization, anticipating social and technological trends in which data is central and which may renew the role and services of our agency. We don't do this alone. We have acknowledged that we have to work in a broader ecosystem with all the stakeholders, and we let that framework evolve with the needs of society and opportunities that technology brings. So we started with the top of the organization.
Interesting, very interesting, Christoph, how all this stuff actually finally is going to the human factor, how it's going to the actually people, how they should change their vision and vision of their organizations in order to make things happen.
I'll skip some slides due to time. So the digital asset management is a core of our business. It means we will have people internally also need to change what they are doing and how they are doing it in the company. Digital traffic management, but also digital construction site. The data-driven culture is a slide that I prepared. This is for us essentially. So we have to get organized, and we started also building a data lab. So what kind of data sets do we have? How do we eliminate double data sets from the organization? How do we start with master data management, that you have one data source for each data file? It sounds very basic and simple, but even at that level, we have to take action. Second, we have to inform and inspire people. They have to be knowledgeable that we are becoming a data-driven organization. They have to also see the opportunities and why we are doing it, or they would not get involved in this. It's very, very different to their current way of working. And last but not least, we have to build the competencies. I can tell you from real experiences, we started a data lab. We had to do 3 rounds of recruitment to get one person to be the coordinator for the data lab, just because the demand for data literate people is so high in the market that it's very difficult to find the skilled people to actually do this. So we have to build on our own people and trying to secure them also within our organization. So that's why I'm saying here at point 2, it has a very high impact on staffing. There's lots of technical terminology that is quite new. Yes, we want to train existing staff, but very likely we also need to recruit new profiles to support the development towards digitization.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you a lot, Christoph. Yeah, it's amazing. It's actually amazing. I would like right now to start a discussion. The discussion will be managed by May Jacobson, Innovation Center Manager of Netivei Israel, and Steven Salzberg, who is actually founder of Smart City and chairman of NetTech Advisor, who he will elaborate what is it, and former chairman of Grow New York Center and American Sustainable Business Cons. So please, guys, the screen is yours. Maybe we will start from Lady May. Yeah, I'm muted.
Now
Steve.
it's okay?
Yeah, please.
Cool. So thank you, Edward, and hi, everyone. I'm truly thrilled that this event is taking place and that you are all with us here today. Before we begin the actual discussion, I would like to invite all of you to join our very new international innovation and technology community. Yeah. This new community's objective is to serve as platform for learning, sharing common success stories and challenges amongst all of us, government, companies, and organizations. I'm a little bit excited. So whoever is interested to join can sign up through the link we will put at chat, and we will be in touch soon. The format will continue like today, through the online meetups and events, and WhatsApp more informal community, and I'll be happy to see you there. And now I would like to step into the first question and note that after almost 6 years that I am living and building the innovation world here at Netivei Israel, and numerous innovation tracks, pilots, and demos with our very active innovation ecosystem, I can say that we continue to stay at the super successful pilot path, but really like in implementation of innovation. It's connected to Susan's things. Now, the 2 major reasons for this are not new. We talk about regulation and the bureaucratic process that slow us down. Our organizations continue to be the weakest link in the innovation ecosystem. For example, by the time that we show up ready to implement, those entrepreneurs and startups may not longer be there. They may have an exit, no longer exist, or even left our small market here in Israel to bigger ones abroad. So my question is, how will you suggest to overcome the lack of sync between the pace of implementation and our government company processes and which solutions have been successful? Thank you.
Yeah, if somebody would like to address.
John, do you want to take that one?
Well, I see Christoph's hand up, but I'll give him another minute to kind of compose his thoughts and look forward to his kind of undoubtedly will be a higher level perspective. I mean, I think that the key is the what you're alluding to, which is kind of the institutional design of the collaboration ecosystem, if you will, between the public and the private sector, and it needs to be. It needs to be continuous, and I really loved all the presentations. I love the way Christoph's presentation landed on this issue of organizational culture, and to begin to align and fuse cultures so that you can capture the innovative energy of the smaller company startup environment and project it ultimately into larger scale, more bureaucratic, government friendly type enterprises and technologies, requires that progression occur within the same shared cultural space. And creating that shared cultural space requires institutional innovation that generates what I'll call non-federal, national scale collaboration enterprises. UK Zenzik, for example, is a great example of that, and there's some others as well. Ostrodes in Australia, where you have sustained, I'll say, inter-organizational institutions that bridge that public-private divide. But that's my reaction as a start of, I'm sure, more eloquent and sophisticated perspectives from others.
Christoph, do you have a comment? And just to be clear, May is also asking about the scale. In other words, how can you help these the folks who you're promoting innovation when you have a sandbox environment, for example? But how do you really determine what filters are in place? What are their infrastructure? Can you take them to scale?
Yeah, it's I like the analogy of the sandbox because Friday evening after a hard week, some of my innovation colleagues, we say, if you scale up a sandbox, you get a desert. That's probably not what we want. but it's a very relevant point. What we did is when we've built this, the three pillars, the PMO, the Innovation Lab, and the Change Lab, we've added a structure in the company with an innovation board, which is a subset of our board of directors, to repetitively, so we do 4 times per year, an highlight of what's really new. And you might say 4 times per year, isn't that very often? Well, we found that there's always plenty of things to report to our innovation boards, and that's where we gain their soul. We have when we have the souls of the innovation board, which also sometimes also takes time, and they would challenge us quite hard whether or not we have to do these investments. Then they go to our general board. But if we go to your general board, we already have the innovation board that is convinced, or at least 80% convinced. Where we are still building on, I should say, is the actual innovation culture. As a road agency, we are used to implement systems that are market ready. So now that we go into the innovation parts, so like CITS is still, although there's like 10, 15 years of research, it is still relatively new, and we're investing 30 million euros. And there is this sentiment that it must work, it has to work. But that's not how innovation works. If the States put a man on the moon, it's not the first rocket that was launched that landed on the moon. So there will be investments that is, you pay money to learn lessons, but ultimately the injection that you do in innovation pays off, because landing a man on the moon was the start of the PC business and the whole personal computing. And so the concept of accepting that some projects that we are investing in as a public sector might fail this is still very sensitive in our organization. And
the moonshot analogy is terrific. When I met Edward and May and Ravital, I was so excited that they were fostering innovation in an ecosystem where government can give ecosystem partners opportunity. In my private sector and investment pursuits with Susan, it's been a pleasure to bring a commercially oriented company with real infrastructure, new innovative solutions, and that's been a joint effort that we think is working by imposing commercial standards. But feeling your pain, May, in your question is, you go to Israel and you meet 30 startups and they all say that they're doing something at Netivei Israel. Well,
Right.
you have to, if you're in Netivei Israel, you better make sure that they're actually capable of scaling. So as we do the moonshot, and I like that analysis, we've got to make sure we can actually land on the moon and keep it going. So part of this conference will be, and May's efforts in hosting more international dialogue will be perhaps to think about filters and methodologies in place that we can take things to scale even as we introduce new ideas. May, did you have another question, or do you want to read some audience questions?
No, we can continue.
Sure. So an audience question for you, John, is actually about another human factor in the human capital in this, which is perhaps, can you identify, John, from your perspective, what critical capabilities civil engineers would require to as they want to survive and stay in this transition from physical infrastructure to digital infrastructure? What are the core capabilities you would think are important?
So as a civil engineer, I've started to kind of conjecture that it would be desirable for us to actually change the name of the discipline from civil engineering to civil infrastructure systems management, and I think that migration of the civil engineering view, as I alluded to it earlier, being about, and again, Christoph illustrated this in his agency, this drive to, it's a very linear thinking process to go from planning, designing, building, cutting the ribbon, and then walking away and hope, anticipating somebody else will maintain that infrastructure, somebody else will worry about it when it's deteriorated to the point that it needs to be rehabilitated, reconstructed, or replaced. A systems engineering and systems management perspective is emerging, I would say, within the civil engineering community and the civil engineering profession. But I see that again, and it's not a technical or technological issue. It's ultimately kind of a professional cultural issue. It's also, quite frankly, a political industrial complex issue. So the reason that civil engineers, I mean, for 40 years, I've been reading magazine articles about how much more money we need for infrastructure in the United States, and it's true in all countries, right? And if the question is, well, how much more? The answer is, well, more, just more, right? And so I would offer that when public policy is driven by political industrial complexes and professions within them that are about attracting ever more money to deploy ever more stuff, you get a very linear, almost insatiable philosophy and culture, right? If, on the other hand, as we talk more and more about sustainability and systems thinking and how civil infrastructure investment has to fit in this sustainable, systemic view of the world, I mean, that's not an inconsequential pivot of professional culture.
So another question is really about, I'll call it sentiment, the human factor. And Professor Gilad, if we could maybe engage you with this question. With Susan, I'll give my 2 cents with Susan and the cameras that are incredible infrastructure and looking at opportunities. It was very quickly apparent that when I'm driving with my partner, she likes Google, I like Waze, and we have that venerable argument, which one of us is right? And all of us want to just see the humanity. What do the cameras actually show? Is there traffic on the Triborough Bridge? Because we're both not getting the help we need from the apps that are out there. But you, Professor, are also speaking about other sentiments, right? How do human behavior, how is that affected in an emergency or in a response? And I'm in Australia right now with actually an Israeli vendor. We spoke with Vic Rhodes and other authorities here in Australia. And oftentimes the decision-making on the government side, whether they want to enforce cell phones while you're driving and other factors, what is the behavioral response? Are folks going to get used to seatbelts, or are they have their phones down and so forth? So how does government interact? Where do you, Professor, see more beyond questionnaires of understanding hyperlocal humanity or sentiment, and how much that plays a role in DOTs and their planning and so forth, or its surface infrastructure generally?
Okay, so again, what I think what was interesting about the EU project was most of the groups were very, very, very engineering oriented, although I'm also an engineer, but I'm the kind that is on the other side dealing with humans. We saw an openness to understanding that those road user needs are now becoming a critical part of the problem, meaning the technology, if you don't address these needs, is not going to solve the entire problem. And we're seeing that, for example, when people are curious or when people are scared and they start to make all kinds of randomized patterns going in a reverse, and then all the emergency forces cannot come in, and a lot of panic and irrationality and small accidents that are happening. So all of a sudden there are many incentives to prove that the technology on its own, if you don't address these elements, is not enough. Interestingly, it's also coming from the vehicle industry itself, because they are starting to realize that people in autonomous cars are not going to be happy if you don't provide them with information. So in a way, everybody is starting to understand that the user has a role in order for this to work. And it's not enough that the autonomous car will work. It's not enough that the emergency will be connected and all of that. So I think that's why there is an openness for starting to model. And our model is very, very simplistic, extremely simplistic, very engineering oriented, in the sense that it looks like a safety engineer likes, the traffic light with the 3 colors, and this is how you assign, and everything is very rudimentary, but it works. So of course you can go for more complex and add cameras and emotions and all of that, but let's start from something. That's the perspective. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, that's helpful. Question for you, Susan, from the audience. In the context of emergency management, how do DOTs incorporate first responders and other administrations in their planning and or in their response to emergencies? Is there room for more collaboration and or the merger of those missions?
So let me start with the end of your question first. I would not say each of those entities you mentioned have very distinct missions. And so I wouldn't look at them as potentials for merging missions. They have complementary pieces, of a mission, but they're unique, and they also require their own, in many cases, unique statutory authorities. They have to operate under a differing set of regulations that really can't be applied across the type of merged organization that you're talking about, their government entity. Can there be more collaboration? Absolutely. I will say that just in the example of Katrina, the way it works, and I know this is the way it works continuing today with a lot of DOTs and at the state level, they have what's called emergency operations centers or coordination centers that sometimes they call them different things. But in our case, it was called the Joint Emergency Operations Center for Hurricane Katrina. And we had everybody in the same room. So we had the state and local DOTs represented. We had all the first responders organizations represented. We had the feds represented, all the different agencies that had a stake in that particular emergency response. And that while that's a rudimentary thinking in terms of, just get everybody in the same room. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you can get everybody in the same room and everybody's working towards the same goal. So each group brought their own specific piece to the mission, but there was an overarching goal that we were working toward, which is, saving lives and restoring communities. And that's what really drove collaboration. I think if there is, back to the culture point that I think both Christoph and John touched on, I think collaboration improves if there is a shared goal that is motivating and is a goal that is sort of bigger than any one person or any one individual entity. There's got to be something big to believe in. And I fundamentally believe, people, just the human race, people want to be a part of something bigger than themselves and have an impact and leave a legacy. And so I think part of the challenge for driving collaboration is identifying what that can be, and then building the team around it that'll be motivated to pursue it and to have an impact.
Thank you. I think that belief, believing in something, leads me to a great question for everyone on the panel. One sentence, and it matches the passion of Ravital and May for this and the conferences and the open discussion that they're looking to do to hold at an international level, and it matches the entrepreneurial and legacy efforts on the part of Susan and her commercial organization, which I'm proud to work with, but also some of the sort of ideation that the other panels have. And here's my question, or here's our question to all of you as we plan more of this global dialogue. What is your one sentence answer? What is your best world look like in the context of what you do for a living and what this discussion brings in 10 years? What does that look like? What does a beautiful world look like in 10 years if you do what you do right now and we get this right? One sentence, each of you. John, you're brave and quite verbose. Jump in.
In two words, extended into a sentence, global collaboration among nations that celebrate freedom and democracy and advance it in integrating aggressively and collaboratively emerging technologies into transportation as a fundamental enabling layer of economic vitality, safety, and security.
Well done, and run-ons are acceptable. And I think
a lot of commas in there.
Christoph, what does a beautiful world look like from a Finnish? And you can put that beautiful Finnish accent in the sentence as well.
Thanks, John, for saving me there because I was still writing it down and gaining some time. I wrote down. Bring profound societal impacts for a better world using technology and have fun at doing so at the same time.
Great. Professor Gilad.
Well, I'm a big believer at live and let live, and I want to see that happening. Like I want to see that the new technologies are utilized for the better and for improving and not for creating all kinds of standards that people will not be comfortable with or will have to compromise to in order to get a service. And I think it's very important to respect that different people have different wishes and different means, and then one solution will not solve everything.
Susan.
I think I would say I like what everybody has said so far, and I like that Christoph threw in and have fun along the way. I agree. I agree with that. I think I would say while honoring and recognizing sort of sovereignty of individual nations and individual areas, being able to collaborate in a way where folks set aside egos and agendas and really can come together and work together for the common good. I think the technology is really there to get to where we want to be in 10 years, and what is holding us back is humanity, not technology.
Wonderful. I hope that question and the answers captured what the passion that Netivei Israel has brought to this global dialogue. And we thank all of the participants. May, do you want to close with that?
No, I think it's perfect. My dream is that we, as government companies, get more implementation. It's really my dream and our target for this year. That's it. Thank you all.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Edward, thank you.
Thank you a lot. And maybe next time we will meet physically. And I think that the world should be without borders, physical or digital.
Thank you for putting this
You're
together.
hosting in Tel Aviv.
Yeah, thank
Great.
you. Revital, maybe your last comments.
No, I would like to thank you all. It was a very fascinating event. I think that it is clear that we all share the same challenges, and we all promote pilots at different maturity levels, and there is so much to talk about and to collaborate. And I really believe, not just hope, but believe that this event is the beginning of a great friendship, as they say. So to be continued.
True.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Great.
Bye.
Have a nice weekend.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Ta-da.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you, Christoph.
My pleasure, Edward. And sorry for the late confirmation.
It's okay. Fine.
If I